you doing today? That goes right on us. We can't even find a house in Madison County for $150,000 anymore. We're having to move to Berea. You can't find it. It's a dump.
If you missed the over 2-hour-long tax increase town hall for the potential jail expansion project last night at the Perkins building on EKU's campus, here are the highlights that you need to know that WBON-TV captured. In the following clips, you will see both responses from the panel and well-prepared fiscal court, as well as those in the community who asked some important questions.
Visit the walk-in clinic at Irvin Primary Care on Friday evenings and weekends with no appointment necessary. A service of Mercy Health, Markham and Wallace Hospital. For those times when it's not serious enough to go to the ER, but you feel too sick to wait until Monday, visit Irvin Primary Care.
We have 558 individuals in our care. We have 384 of them in our facility. We have 50 out on home incarceration, which is AKA ankle bracelets. And we have 124 in other jails. So you might say to yourself, gosh, why do we have so many criminals in Madison County? But the truth of the matter is, as hard as it is to stomach as a growing county, we actually are right in line with the national average. We're actually lower.
I see a lot of people that's about my age, or a little older. And so I think I can just bring it all together by saying that your presentation was done so eloquently. Your PowerPoints were great. I think everybody's concern is, for me, you know, I have health issues now. I have prescriptions. And things are starting to really pile up on cost. And so when I look around the room and I see people with gray hair, you've either retired or you're planning on retiring. And people are afraid because they can't afford what you're speaking of. It's not that they don't agree with you, because we do. We understand that there's a problem. And what I would like to see is, I understand we need a bigger jail. And there's probably a lot of people that look like me that's in the jail. I understand when that man stood up and said a lot of people are there because they can't pay for the bail. That's a problem. Culturally, that's a problem. When you build your bigger jail, culturally, it's probably going to be people that looks like me that's in the jail.
My name is Judd Patterson. I'm a former county attorney here, and when I left politics, I promised my wife two things. I'd never stand in front of a microphone again, and I'd never go to another pancake breakfast. But I'm here, and I'm talking because it means so much to me, and I think I can give you all a unique perspective because I've looked in the eyes of the people that are over there at the jail. Spent the better part of a decade doing it. And I can promise you that the people that are there need to be there. And our jail is too small, and so there's lots of people who need to be there that aren't there. And one of the things that you've seen in the increase that Steve was talking about, this recent increase, we now have a Richmond Police Department that's operating at full strength. But you didn't always have that. They were understaffed. And every officer that you put on the street is going to increase your incarceration by a defined amount. And if you all knew what I knew, if you had looked in the eyes that I've seen, you would vote for a 100-fold increase in these taxes. I can promise you the place to fight this is not on the jail. So listen to me now, listen to me. You cannot understand how important it is to your safety to understand that the people that are there need to be there. And the police departments that we've got, Sheriff Coyle's got one of the finest departments in the state. RPD, Berea's Police Department, State Police here are all superior institutions. And the prosecutors that are here are doing a great job sifting out those who don't need to be there. So I can promise you that a 600-bed facility is not sufficient to handle the dangerous characters that we've got running through our county.
A lot of people have been asking us other ways to raise money aside from property tax. And so in Kentucky, people are surprised to know that counties actually have very few options in county taxes. We can do property tax rates. We can do insurance premium tax. That's a tax on your insurance. Like some of our fellow counties who can charge a higher occupational rate than 1%, and the cities, we are capped at 1%. And that cost is to house them and to transport them, not just the first time, but back and forth to court for any court appearance that they have. Yet popular list of suggestions we've received from Facebook. Restaurant tax. Only certain cities can do a restaurant tax by law. Sales tax, income tax. Those are state and federal and state options. Tourism tax, sin taxes, gasoline tax, cell phone tax, motor vehicle tax. All wonderful ideas of which none that we can legally use. Now, it's important to understand how property assessments work when you think about your tax bill. There's been a lot of questions about the tax bill. And so in property assessment, Billy Ackerman, who's our PVA, is required by law to annually review one quadrant of Madison County a year for assessment. So if you were assessed this year, then obviously you feel like you have a rate that is increased, and then in addition, a tax. But here's the reality. It doesn't matter when we propose a tax. It will affect someone who has been reassessed. The first one, can we build on the depot? We actually went to the Department of Army and went to federal government. And we specifically asked if we could go behind the fence because we thought, wow, it's secure. That's a great idea. A lot of land. And they said, no, not during the demilitarization, and no, not after, because their mission of storing weapons on that facility behind a secured fence will still exist.
Last 6 months, we've gone up over 100 inmates. If that trend continues, even the 800 beds that we're talking about proposing, and the state allows us to go 20% over that, so we're at 940 or 50 beds, even that window of opportunity, we're talking about 10 years or less.
And so nobody's excited about paying higher taxes more than unexcited than me. But I grew up in Madison County. I grew up right here in Richmond. And I think it's very clear that we have a drug problem. I think it's also very clear that our 2018 attempts to solve that drug problem, fell short. So it would be my opinion that this is completely necessary.
At the fiscal court meeting on September 10th at 2 p.m. is when the public hearing for this will occur. At that point, a vote will be cast. If the vote is passed, there are 45 days for a petition to be circulated. At the conclusion, if the appropriate number of signatures is received and is valid, under Kentucky Revised Statute Law, then at that point it goes on the ballot for the November 2020 election. That is not this coming election, but the next election. If it passes and the ballot referendum or the petition, does not collect the appropriate signatures, then the tax bills would be mailed out as of November 1st in accordance with statute.
Are there any different construction requirements for jails who don't house state prisoners?
If you have 10 questions, we'll just do a question and an answer,
All right.
if that's okay.
Well, I'll try to get my 2 minutes in.
West over here in Richmond, and my question is for Mr. Tussey. About how many inmates do we have in there right now that cannot post bail because they're too poor and they're held in jail and they're innocent until proven guilty, and we're paying the cost of keeping them there?
Mm-hmm. Most of them, if they could post bail, obviously they'd be gone.
Yeah, and here's my point on this whole thing. I've been following it. A few weeks ago, I heard a documentary mention that it's a problem across the country. Mm-hmm. Our lawmakers, our judicial system is the problem. I'm all for giving a couple cents. I'm not for the 11 cents. I think it's ridiculous. I plan on retiring in a few years. I'm going to have a small pension, and with my Social Security, I'll probably draw somewhere around $1,900 a month. And like the gentleman said, with the cost of everything, my house is value's going up. Your dollar goes less. I just think it's a horrible idea and it needs to be rethought. But everybody in this room, you can call your lawmakers and encourage them.
What does most counties do when they get in this situation? And then I have a comment.
Okay.
Go ahead and answer now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So obviously, yes, obviously with the numbers, we've got 5,000 more inmates than we've got beds across the state. So all of our jails, with the exception of maybe a handful, are over capacity. It's just a matter of how much over capacity. over 45% of our jails are at 160% capacity and above. We have some jails that are at more than double their capacity. So if they're rated for 100 beds, they've got, 200 inmates. We have a couple of counties that are approaching or have exceeded 300% occupancy.
I trust in the court. I'm going to support whatever decision they make. If they think this is the right decision, I'm going to back that up. I know they've looked into it. She wouldn't have been able to get up there and give you an hour of facts if they hadn't looked into every avenue. Somebody said, what would we do? If we build this, our kids is going to pay for it. Well, what's going to happen in 20 years if we pay $2 million a year out to house these inmates somewhere else? We're still going to have the problem after we've spent $30 million, and we're not going to have nothing. So, my wife works there. I got a lot of friends back there that work there. There's law enforcement, medical personnel. There's all kinds of people that frequent the jail daily, and every day we're putting their life at risk because of the condition of that jail. And one of these days, something's going to happen to them. It's going to be bad. And I don't want to see that happen. So that's where I stand on it, and I hope you understand why. Thank you.
Thank you.
When I bought my home here in the county 24 years ago, I paid $136,000 for it. I had a mortgage payment of $1,058, principal and interest, and $170 for a total of $1,175 was my monthly payment with taxes, insurance, mortgage, and principal. Now, 20 years later, the state says my house is worth $318,000, okay? The house is not worth a penny more to me now than it was the day I bought it. I live in it, I'm gonna live in it till I die. You can say it's worth $750,000. It doesn't matter to me. It's my home, it's where I live. My mortgage payment is now $1,672. That's over $500 increase in property tax and the associated insurance cost with the state and the county keep raising the value of my property. I'm not making a windfall here. I'm not flipping houses and sticking $100,000 in my pocket. I'm paying more every month. And now you want to raise my taxes $37 for the jail? What's the school going to want? What's the library going to want? What's the ambulance service going to want? I can't keep paying these taxes. I am now paying 60% of the mortgage payment in taxes and insurance, and it's got to stop. I'm at $1,672, and you're going to raise it another $3,700. So my $1,100 house is now $1,700 a month. That's where I'm at, and that's what I want people to realize. The state comes around, it used to be every 10 years. Now they're saying every 4 years they're going to come in and raise your property value to what they think the current market value is. That means nothing to you as a homeowner. You're not selling your house, you're living in it. And the county and the state are continually driving up the value of your home so they can look you in the eye and tell you, we don't raise your taxes. No, we just double the value of your house and you pay twice as much. But your rate is still the same.
What's plan B if we don't get these federal and other county jails? I mean, what's plan B? Are we going to be stuck with a bunch of beds that we can't fill, as well as the payment?
Currently, we have 44 full-time staff, and that one number would of course increase incrementally as the number of inmates rise. We're looking for about a 40 or 50 to 1 ratio of staff per inmate on the floor, and depending if we go to 800 beds, if we go to 1,000 beds, the numbers, of course, will change according to the number of inmates that we need to supervise.
Currently, across Kentucky, we have 80 jails total. 76 of those jails are what we consider to be full-service jails, so they are capable of housing not only their own county inmates, but also state inmates, federal inmates, ICE detainees, U.S. Marshals, whatever they may contract for. So really, when you talk about capacity, that capacity is limited within those 76 facilities. And currently, across those 76 facilities, we have approximately a little over 20,000 beds available in those 76 facilities, including Madison counties, obviously. But currently today, the population is about in excess of 25,000.
What can we do to help with the drug problem, along with being able to be safe? Because it's a community problem, but I think we could handle it without scaring everybody and maybe raising our taxes too much where we can't afford to live in a house.
We definitely have a jail problem, and it's not that I don't want a tax either. I don't want an increase on it, but bottom line is we've got that many people in there. We're going to wind up having more lawsuits. It's going to wind up costing us more money in the long run because of all these extra people in the jail. That's not going away. It's only going to get worse. The other thing is, they try to let these folks get out some, or if they put them out on home arrest or whatever. But then again, sometimes you'll have somebody get out, and and a lot of people here say, well, it doesn't affect me. This is no big deal for me. Well, it will affect you if it's your wife that winds up getting attacked at gunpoint, and then the officer that tried to help her got killed. And that's what happened to me. This is real, people. We've got problems in the jail. This is just a first stop. We've got to fix the problem with the jail. It's going to cost us. We can't help it. It's there. You can't turn it away. It's the community. It's our community. It's nobody else's community. Okay? We've got to deal with this. Okay? But after we get this jail, there's ways also that you can turn this around and start trying to help maybe rehab some people out of this and put them back in our workforce.
So it's a 19 cents is where your tax is going to go, not percentage of your tax. So please look at that when you're talking about it. It is an increase. I'm not trying to stand up here and be the cheerleader for this situation, but it is a tax rate in that particular tax district of your tax.
It's going to cost you more to build a 600-bed jail than it will the 842 because we have no revenues to come in. So, yes, would your bond payment go down? Yes, it would go down. It might even go down to build the 600-bed down to the 32, which would be $2.5 million a year instead of $4 million. But you're losing $6.6 million in revenue. That $6.6 million in revenue will pay that bond payment plus pay towards your county inmates that you're keeping.
My wife and I have invested in property, and our taxes are it's probably going to require us to leave the county and sell out because that's my only retirement. I do not like planning to fail. I don't understand why our society has come to the point where we're expecting 100 more rather than making plans and taking care of the public and stopping the problem rather than incarcerating the problem. We need to plan to not fail. And this jail is a plan to fail. It's certainly, all the predictions is that we are failing in this county. Now, I don't know why other counties aren't failing, and maybe they are, but Estill County is not going broke. I work in Estill County. They're not going broke. They don't have a jail now. They do have to send their prisoners out, but they have 50 instead of 600. Why do we have 600?
48% of the people in this county and city is paying their taxes. The rest of them is not paying nothing. What is the percentage today that people are paying and paying on time?
Good question. Glenna?
We calculated it up on last year. 91% is what is paying their taxes. We have 9%. So when we took in the calculations of what we would bring in on the old rate and the new rate, we took off that 9% that we knew that we would not collect.
Okay. Two, all my life I didn't understand this, and probably not even today. If you live in the city, which I do, why do I pay county taxes and people live in the county do not pay city taxes? Can you explain that?
Ooh, that's a complicated question that I'm going to defer to Lonnie. Or Rich. Rich would be about, he punted to Rich. Good job. Rich Ornstein.
Excuse me, I would like to just finish up because you're wasting my 2 minutes.
Fair point.
I sit back, I'm a retired firefighter here in Richmond, and I see this drug problem and stuff, and it's doing, it's getting worse, and there's no end to it. I like to know also when I sit down, what is the percent rate of prisoners coming back after a few days back into the system? It seemed like we got so many repeaters, and most of the repeaters probably don't want to get help. This is a worldwide problem, and I don't think there's no solution. I think if you build 1,000 bed within several years, we'll be back here because you all be wanting more money. That is not the way to do things. And at last, if you're going to think about this 12 or 18%, 19%, why don't you put it on the voting ballot and let the Madison County people decide? Don't let 3, 4, 5 side, let us. And if we don't want it as a group, then we don't need it. Thank you.
So Rich, if you'll take the first question.
Which one?
Which one? The first question with regards to city versus county.
Okay, that's not an easy question. It's a good question. There are certain things, the easy answer, the simple answers, that's how it was set up in the General Assembly. There are county taxes because the counties are obligated to pay for certain things, such as jails. But you're right. County residents, let's get to the property tax. It's probably the easiest way to explain. For property tax purposes, you only pay that property tax where you own property. If you're in the county, not in the city limits, you're not in Berea, you're not in Richmond, you don't pay the city property tax. You only pay the county. I realize that. Occupational taxes, for example, in this community, if you work in Berea or Richmond, you're not paying the county occupational tax. You're only paying the Berea and Richmond occupational tax because of the offset. It would be the same thing if you had an insurance premium tax. But as far as why it's set up that way, that's the way it's set up in statute.
So many people in this community are on fixed income, and I've talked with them. And if you take and double what their taxes are going to be, you're going to find a lot of people who are going to suffer in other ways. My thing is to the fiscal court and to the panel, how low are you all willing to come down on that from that 19.8?
We can't get the bond if we can't show. We would love to spread it out over 3 years and do part of it. But the bonding companies won't give us the money to go ahead and start the project if we're not guaranteed that we're going to have the money to pay the bond payment.
Many people in this room, this feels like the very first time you have probably heard this. But we have tried our hardest to communicate. In 2015, Judge Taylor commissioned a jail task force to study the condition of the detention center. It was made up of local bankers in our community, accountants, people from the substance abuse area, a representative from Richmond, a representative from Berea, Sheriff Cole, then jailer Doug Thomas. The report found immense overcrowding, heavy incarceration due to drug and drug-related crimes, and an extensive lag time in the judicial timeline from arrest to sentencing. And if you'd like to read that report, this website that we are going to have up, it's actually up right now, MadisonCountyKY.us/public safety. All materials I'm referencing today are at that website, including this PowerPoint. Aside from our regular court meetings where we talk about this topic frequently, these are the times that we have made an outright focused discussion about the jail, about overcrowding. Sorry, I can hear something in the background there. A jail overcrowding. We've talked about our issue of incarceration.
I live off of Goggins Lane. I'm all about negotiation. So, I know what you're asking for the future. Split it in half. Don't go so big on all these beds. I know